All right, let's see. We've got managing moderators. Okay, we'll close that. Let's see here. Let's check this right here. All right. So we've been live for 1 minute and 7 seconds, and no one has joined in. That's okay though. All right, that's okay. We'll just keep it rolling. Still live right now. Yo, we got somebody who joined. I can't really see. We got somebody that joined the live stream. Yo, welcome. We got a fellow immortal in the chat. Who do we got here? Let's see. It's not going to show me. Okay, we don't have anybody. They dipped out. We had somebody join, but they left immediately. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. They said, nope, we are gone. We are not going to be in this live chat. Fair enough. I understand. What else we got here? Let's see. Settings. We'll share to. Let's see if we can do this here. Nope. Okay. All messages are viewable. All right. Still in live chat for 3 minutes. We don't have any immortals joining the chat. That's okay. It's okay. Past live streams. We don't have any past live streams because this is the first live stream that we're doing here. Okay. I'm just looking at some cards, kind of chilling. Just looking at some Highlander cards. That's what we're all here for. These are pretty good. What else we got? I think we're gonna go live for like 1 hour. We'll see if we can get anybody to trickle in here in an hour. If we just get one person, that'll be all right. We'll just get one person or two or three. Maybe we can get four. I'm hoping for like 5. So, we got, what's up? We got one immortal joining the chat. Who do we got there? What's up, man? How we doing? Are we on holy ground right now? Because this is all about, Highlander, the card game. And, oh, we got Tanya. How you doing, Tanya? Nice. Glad to hear you. All right, cool. Thank you for that. glad to see you in the chat. We appreciate that here. Remember, Tanya, there can be only one, okay? There can be only one collectible card game. That's the name of the game, right? We're just chilling, you know, looking at some cards, hanging out, having a good time. Tanya must have stepped off of holy ground uh, to join the chat, or she might be actually she might be on holy ground and she's watching the chat. She's watching the channel from holy ground, you know, because that's the only way an immortal gets any kind of relief is when they're on holy ground. Okay, because you know, as we all know, you can't fight another immortal when you're on holy ground as the game goes. So I appreciate you for stopping by, Tanya. Thank you for stopping by. We appreciate that. We've got one immortal in the chat right now, and she's a female immortal. So you know, some of the female immortals in the show, in the television show, and the movies are actually some of the most dangerous. People don't realize that, but you know, the female immortals, they're some of the most dangerous immortals in the show and in, you know, the television series, you know, the show and the movie. They're some of the most dangerous, you know, because you know, if you have like a seasoned immortal, you know, and he's a big dude and he's strong or whatever it is, and he sees a female immortal, he's not really threatened by her, but that's where their strength comes in, because you know, they're not really threatening, you know, physically, kind of like how a male immortal would be, like their male counterpart, you know. So the female immortals, the girls, the women, they'll get you. Like they will get you faster, you know, than most of the male immortals, because you got, you know, a male immortal, you know, you got a guy, a man, and you know what's coming. You know, if he wants to fight you, you know what's coming. He's gonna challenge you. He's gonna throw down the challenge, and you're gonna accept it or you're gonna run. But the female immortals, they come at it from a different way. You know, the female immortals, the girls, the women, they're gonna come at it from a different way because they know they can't match, you know, their male counterparts on a strength for strength basis. So they're gonna trick you. You know, they're gonna come in, they're gonna trick you, and they're going to make it seem like, you know, they love you or they like you, they want to spend forever together because they're, you know, you're both immortal, so you can spend forever, you know, together, and they're going to make you think that, and they're going to get you comfortable, and they're going to get you to like them. You know, they're probably going to give you a little bit of, they're going to give you a little bit of smooches. They're going to be like, baby, I love you. We're going to take over the world together. It's just you and me. And then you're going to let your guard down. And then while you're sleeping, they're going to pull their sword out and they're just going to chop your head right off, and they're going to gain all of your power. So I think it's, you know, in my opinion, I think some of the female immortals, they are the most dangerous, in my opinion, you know, because you don't know. Just like, you know, that's just how it goes. I think, you know, you've got Faith, or, you know, Kate. She loved Duncan, and you know, if she wanted to, she could just wait for him to go to sleep. She could cut his head right off and take his power. You got Annie Devlin. Annie was definitely, you know, she was a strategist. She was somebody who, you know, oh, we got another fellow immortal joining us. What's up? We got another immortal in the channel. How you doing? Say what's up in the chat so we know who it is. We're just chilling, having a good time, talking about some Highlander, talking about the series, the card game, the movies, you know, whatever else comes to mind. If you love Highlander, you love the series, you love the movies, you love the card game, this is the spot for you. You know, this channel was, you know, dedicated for, you know, Highlander the card game. So, you know, if you've ever played, then you know how the card game is. If you've never played, then you know this is the spot for you. You can learn how to play. But you know, this is the first live stream, so we're kind of just chilling, you know, having a good time, talking about the game. You know, maybe the upcoming movie coming out, if y'all have any ideas or thoughts on, you know, what the new movie is going to bring. You know, I heard we have Henry Cavill, who's going to be playing Connor. You know, so that'll be pretty good. You know, Henry's a good he's a good actor. So I think that you know, and plus we have the director, you know, from John Wick, you know, directing the new Highlander movies. I think that's going to be dope, to be honest with you. I think that's going to be cool because, you know, I saw all of the John Wick movies and they're pretty good, you know, as far as like action movies and storytelling and goes like that. So, and Lionsgate is a pretty good, you know, I guess like publishing company or whatever it may be, or production company. So Lionsgate always does some good movies, and you know, hopefully it'll be good. But you know, we still got Tanya in the chat. We still got Tanya in the chat. Oh Oh, that's funny. That is funny. I like it though, you know. That's what we like. We like at least one person in the chat having a good time. I know Tanya's having a good time right now. I know she is. Wherever she is, she's having a good time. So we got another fellow immortal joining the chat here. Just checking it out, seeing what's up. Welcome to the first live stream of The Source. If you've seen some of my videos before, you'd know I'm Russell Nash, and this is the #1 spot for Highlander the card game. If you have any questions, about the game, or if you're a player, feel free to drop them in the chat, man. I would love to talk about the game. If you have, like I said, if you have any questions about, any aspects of the game, maybe any deck ideas, stuff like that, please go ahead and drop it in the chat. We can get a good discussion going. If you played first edition, second edition, type 1, type 2, whatever it may be, I played really every edition to the game. I've played, all from first edition, to type 1 and on to second edition. So I think I have a pretty good grasp of a lot of the, all of the different formats to the game. So if hey, if you only play like first edition, then that's I think a lot of people that only play first edition, I think really what it comes down to is like they've never had a chance to play second edition, because like this game when it came out in the early 90s, it was really competing against a lot of other CCGs that came out. The big one was Magic. Like when Magic dropped, you had, when Magic dropped, it was really popular. It like took off like nothing else. Nobody had ever seen, a collectible card game like Magic before. There had been other games before that, but like, Wizards of the Coast, when they came out with Magic, they really just like cornered the market because they made such a good game, and like people fell in love with it. And it's like when people played Magic for the first time, it was like something that they could relate to, you know what I'm saying? And it's like in the early 90s when Highlander came out, it was one of those things to where CCGs and collectible card games, they were like really big, because people saw other like production companies and stuff like that. They saw how quickly like Magic took off, and they thought, hey, we can capitalize on this. Like we can, create our own game, and we can like, do what Magic is doing. And so a lot of the popular IPs and stuff like that, like, you had, of course, Pokemon. Pokemon came out, and it was great. I remember when Pokemon came out, and everybody was going crazy for that, and I was a young kid when Pokemon came out, the first edition, and I was amazed by it. It was one of those games that like really kind of took me by surprise and took me by storm. But I was so young that I didn't really understand how to play when it first came out. But I was obsessed with the cards and stuff like that, so I always wanted to get them. But when Highlander came out, it was a game that the television series was like at its peak. You know what I'm saying? Like the television series was really at its height when the card game came out. And I feel like, Thunder Castle Games, when they came along and they released first edition, Mike Sager came along and he had a really great system, the Swordmaster system. And, it's kind of interesting because the Swordmaster system, what Highlander is based off of, how the system of the game was created and how it was, how you play the game, it was really unique when it came out, and even still to this day, it's a unique game, the way the system is run. And I feel like a lot of CCGs, especially something like Flesh and Blood, a lot of people play Flesh and Blood. And a lot of stuff that's in Flesh and Blood, you can find in Highlander. You have a hero, you have an immortal, or, whoever that you're playing against, right? Or whoever that you're playing as. And you've got gear, you know what I'm saying? And we've lost our second viewer, but we still got Tanya in the chat. That's fine. We still got Tanya. So Tanya's going to stay strong. But, as I was saying, I feel like when Highlander came out, it was at the height of the television series. And it was a really, like, they capitalized on, oh, what's up, everybody? We got two more fellow immortals joining the chat. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing this afternoon? This is our first live chat here on the channel. We're just doing a little test run, seeing how things go. We're happy to have y'all in here. Where everybody's on holy ground right now, okay? So nobody's going to be taking anybody's heads right now because we're all on holy ground. Okay. What does Tanya say? Tanya says, maybe I'll become a Highlander one day. Uh-oh. I think, I think you already are a Highlander, Tanya, to be honest with you. I think you're already a Highlander. Because if you're in the chat, that means that you're already a fellow immortal. So, and like what I was saying earlier, I think some of the female immortals, they're probably some of the most, deadly from what I was saying. Because they can, they make you think one thing and they get you while you're sleeping. Except for like Rebecca, somebody like Rebecca, from the television series, she was pretty strong. She was a master herself, so she was able to fight her male counterparts like one on one, and she was alive for a long time. So, but if you're just joining the chat, Steve, what's up, Steve? My buddy, how you doing, Steve? It's good to see you, man. Thank you for tuning in, man. Steve says I'm always on holy ground. Steve, you are a veteran immortal, my friend, and I think that I think all of the other immortals, that are out there. When Steve says I'm always on holy ground, when Steve steps off a holy ground, that's going to be a problem for everybody else because Steve's on holy ground right now, but I have a feeling that deep inside Steve's going to come off a holy ground and he's going to come for all our heads. Steve says, "I'm good. How are you?" I'm good, brother. I'm good. Just living life and hanging out. Like I said, man, this is our first live stream. I really wanted to do something cool and just kind of sit here and chat with you guys and sit here and chat with y'all about the game and whatever else Highlander has to offer. I think it'd be cool to talk to to other viewers and to everybody else that is a fan of the game. Highlander is such an amazing and it's such a unique game that I feel like it deserves its credit. And I feel like, a lot of people, they kind of don't really look at Highlander the way they look at the other games. And I feel like Highlander has something, pretty unique to offer when it comes to CCGs and stuff like that. But, Steve, like I said in that video, man, you wrote probably one of the best articles that you can find out there on how to build a deck. And like I said in the video, man, I appreciate all of that hard work that you put into that article. I've read it a million times. I love it. Every time I'm having a problem when I'm building a deck, I always go back to that article that you wrote. So, I appreciate that, man. And it's literally invaluable when it comes, like the last video that I dropped talking about, the basics of deck building. I referenced that video, that article that you wrote like really heavily because if you're trying to build a deck for this game, I think that everybody should start, from that article because it's like it gives you a solid foundation on where to even start. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're building a deck for this game, it's just one of those things to when I'm having troubles myself, I always go back and I always reference it. So I mean, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, man, I left the link in the video so people could go check that out for themselves. So I really hope that they do because it's invaluable, bro. It's gonna help them. Learning this game. We got 3 people in the chat right now, so that's a good thing. We got Tanya, we got Steve. I don't know who the third person is. I hope that they drop a comment and let us know, what's going on with them. If they're a fan of the card game, if they like the series, they like the movies. That's what we're here for, man. We're here to talk about the card game and really whatever else Highlander has to offer. It's just that's kind of what this chat is about. Even if you're not really a fan of the card game itself, but you love the Highlander universe. This is the place for you. Like, this is a place that, fellow immortals can come together and we can talk about really anything that has to do with the Highlander universe. Like we were saying earlier, we got the new movie coming out, with Henry Cavill. So, I mean, that's going to be pretty epic, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think that, a movie like that has come out in a long time, and I think like with the movie coming out, I think it'll be like pretty big for the card game, because it's going to get people interested in Highlander again, and it's like some people that are a little bit older, that when they were coming up in the 80s or the early 90s, the movie was huge. Like the first Highlander, excuse me, it didn't do that well at the box office, but after the movie came out, it became like a cult classic. Like it became like an instant cult classic. I mean, everybody knows, like, there can be only one. Like everybody knows, when you say there can be only one, you're talking about Highlander, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's one of those things that's why I like to mention it, like at the end of the videos, there can be only one collectible card game, you know what I'm saying? So while we're here, I got a deck right here that I built recently, and I think it's a pretty good deck. I played a game not too long ago. Actually, I won the game with this deck. I played a really good player, and the deck. So I'll show you all the deck real quick if you want to see it. So the immortal that I chose to build this deck with is he's from the television series, right? So it's Hamza, right? Elka here, Hamza. He's from the series. Hamza, he it's funny about Hamza because he had like a pretty like short, span in the show or whatever. Like his episode really wasn't that long, or he wasn't really a big part of it. But yeah, so the first part of the deck, the immortal that we're running Hamza. Okay, so that's our persona, and Hamza, he's all about guards. You know what I'm saying? So like if you're gonna use guards, you need a weapon that can let you attack to places that you just blocked and things like that. So I'm running the katana, right? I'm running the katana for my weapon. And this is essentially the deck, Steve. If you remember when I came to Worlds out in Kansas, this is essentially my Worlds deck. And out of everybody that was there that was playing at the World Tournament when y'all hosted it in Kansas, everybody that was playing, they were some of the best players, including you, Steve, including you, that are still playing, this game. And, this game is a little bit older, but the people who are still playing, we're diehard, we're devoted to it. So this deck here was essentially my Worlds deck. And I was able to, place fifth at Worlds for Highlander. And, for somebody like me who's been playing relatively a short time compared to everybody else who was there, I felt really good, for placing fifth place at Worlds with this deck, and like I said, everybody that was there, they've been playing the game, since the beginning for 20 plus years. So this deck is like something I'm really proud of. For those that just joined us, I'm kind of going over my Worlds deck that I played at the World Tournament. I think it was in 2022. I could be wrong. I think it was in 2022. It wasn't too long ago, but there's been a World since then, I believe. I think there was another World since then, or at Gen Con or something like that. But yeah, for those that are just joining in, on my Worlds deck, I was running Hamza, and I'll kind of get into it a little bit. I'll kind of tell y'all what I have in the deck and why I have it. So Hamza, if y'all aren't aware, so Hamza's his power is. Steve says you should be proud. You did very well, man. Steve, I appreciate that, bro. Especially coming from you, man. Like that means a lot. I appreciate that, dude. Like that's a lot coming from Steve. Like because Steve, if y'all don't know Steve, Steve is yeah, last Gen Con. That's right, last Gen Con. That's when the last Worlds happened. So coming from somebody like Steve, who's been a veteran of the game since day one. And Steve's an amazing player. If y'all have never had the chance to play Steve, or you don't know about Steve, Steve is on the official rules committee. He's on the design team, and another thing, like, Shane Robbins, like Shane's been coming out with some great sets. I love the work that Shane's been doing. It's amazing. Like he's come out with some great sets, but Steve has been in the game since the very beginning. He's been there from the jump. He's an amazing player. But yeah, so coming from you, Steve, I appreciate that, bro. So the deck that I've got now, so Hamza, I'm sure you know Steve, but you may play blocks with guard in the title from your hand as if from an exertion, right? And your opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by one for each standing defense that you have in play. Yeah, Shane is great. So, with this kind of persona, with this kind of immortal, the reason why I chose him was because you can play blocks with guard in the title as if from an exertion. So I think that that's really powerful. I think that's really strong because you don't need to include other cards in your deck to allow you to play, a card from your hand. Like if your opponent is restricting you from playing a defense from your hand, like, a lot of cards in the game will say your opponent can't play a dodge from their hand to defend this attack, or, your opponent can't play, a certain type of card from their hand. This gets around that, and that's really strong. Like if you can play something like as if from an exertion, then that's really strong because you can limit the cards that go in your deck, and you don't need a lot of cards to help you get around something like that. So that's a main reason why I chose him, because I don't need any bait and switch. If you're not familiar with the game and you're watching right now, bait and switch is a card that basically allows you to play a defense card from your hand if your opponent is restricting that. If they have a card that says your opponent can't play a block from their hand, or your opponent can't play a dodge from their hand, you'll need a card, an edge card titled, bait and switch, and bait and switch allows you to do that. So you'll play your bait and switch, and then you'll play your defense, right? So Hamza, one of his powers is like, it's really strong right away. Like it's really, really strong right away. Because you don't need that, because if you have a guard in your hand, you can just play that as if from an exertion. So you don't need the bait and switch. So that was one of the main reasons why I chose him. He also, restricts your opponent's hand size for however many standing defenses you have in play, right? So the goal with him is to get a bunch of standing defenses in play. And from there, you're going to be restricting your opponent's hand. And, from there, it's going to be very hard for them to really kind of, make up their mind and see what they're going to do, because, they might have 15 ability, but you're restricting their hand. If you've got 4 standing defenses in play, which you should if you're going to run Hamza, if you've got 4 standing defenses in play, then their hand size is now down, to what, 11? So it's one of those things where that power is really strong. And that's another main reason why I chose him. So, he can play stuff from his hand, excuse me, if they're restricting you from doing so. And he reduces your opponent's hand size. So I think that's strong. Now for the weapon that I'm using for Hamza, I'm using the katana, right? The katana allows you to attack where you last blocked. And if you're familiar with the game, then you know that wherever you block your last attack, you can't attack to those same grids, right? So the katana is really good for that. That's the weapon I'm using for this. And like I said, if you're just tuning in right now and you're just kind of like checking it out, I'm going over the Worlds deck at the World Tournament, Highlander World Tournament that I played at the Worlds. So, my persona was Hamza. I was running the katana. And then, so the other pregame stuff that I was running was the Arms and Tactics weapon meld, right? So that allows you to take a hilt and you weld it to your weapon. And the hilt that I'm running was a quality blade hilt, right? It was, you may play in a, oh no, wait, hold on, this is the wrong hilt. The hilt that I was running, I think I had mixed this up. Anyways, the hilt that I was running was another generic hilt. It was the, you may make power blocks with a 0 card hard exertion, so I could power block and not have to worry about it. And then I was running the, what is this? This is location, so you get location, right? You go and fetch location. And then I was going and I was going to fetch a situation. Those are the other pre-games. And then Steve, you'll like this one. Steve, who is that? We got Steve right there. Steve was in my pregame. I had Steve in my pregame right here, and he's always looking out for me. I had him in my pregame. So this card, basically it's a rip card, right? So if your opponent plays, a special card or an illusion, you can remove this card from the game and it counters that right away. And I had this in there to protect, some of my situations that I had in play, because I needed those situations in play. You know what I'm saying? Because that was a big part of my theme or my strategy to keep those situations in play. And, then I was running the crystals, right? And, if you're familiar with the game, then you know what the crystals do. But, other than that, the deck is pretty straightforward, man. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We're running a couple locations. We got the lighthouse location, because in this deck, I wasn't really focused on dodging. Like, I've only got like 2 or 3 dodges in this deck, because Hamza, he's all about guards, right? So he's all about guarding. He's not really about dodging. So he's all about blocking. And that's where the hilt comes in play, because I can make power blocks without an exertion. I don't need anything like that. I don't need to be burning 5 cards to make the exertion or whatever. But as far as the deck goes, it's pretty straightforward. I've got my toolbox stuff. I'm running a katana specific weapon card at the let's see here. I know it's a little bright. Whatever. Focus Strike. So what Focus Strike does? Focus Strike is a power blow with a 0 card hard exertion, which is it's pretty great, because you're just going to be power blowing basically every turn. And one of Hamza's like main cards for this deck, and if you're not using this card, then I kind of feel a little bad for you, because you're not using Hamza correctly. And I think if you know the game, then you know what I'm talking about. But this card right here, this card is pretty dope, to be honest with you, right? That's his Master's Guard. I mean, it's in my opinion, like, honestly, it's one of the best cards in the game. it's a full defense. It's all the grids. It's every grid, right? And it can defend multiple attacks. Like you play your guard. If your opponent is throwing multiple attacks at you, you can drop the guard, right? And then you can pick it back up and drop it again. If they throw 4 attacks at you, you can drop the guard, pick it back up. You can essentially just block all of their attacks with one card essentially. I think that's very strong. But the deck is pretty straightforward. It's like, you want to throw your guard out, and you want to keep your guard out. And another key card for this deck, we got our location. So I'm running Lighthouse, right? Because I don't care about dodging, right? In this deck, I don't really care about dodging. So I keep Lighthouse in there to keep my opponent from dodging. And basically, if they play an unsuccessful attack on their turn, they can't play a dodge, during their next turn, right? So, and I don't care about dodging. Like I don't care about any of that, right? So I'm going to run those. But another card that, like, if you're going to run the Katana and you're going to have your guard, I think, let me find it real quick because we're talking about the deck. Let's see here. Yeah, here it is. So Master of the Katana is like a really great card for this deck, okay? If you can keep this card in play and you can keep your guard up, this card right here is like, I don't want to say it's the most important card of the deck, but it definitely is one of the most important cards of the deck. It says, you may attack to areas covered by a guard you have in play without dropping a guard. This is a standing defense. So, if you remember what I was saying about Hamza, he's all about standing defenses. And the more standing defenses that you have in play, the more your opponent's hand size is restricted, right? So that obviously right there goes well with his persona power. Plus, it's allowing you to keep your master's guard up and you can attack back through it. So those two things, working together, like if you can keep that card in play, it's gonna cause your opponent some problems, especially because like I'm power blowing, every single chance I get with the focus strike. So and plus I'm restricting their dodges. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm restricting how they play a dodge because I also have the generic event in here. Let's see if we can find it real quick. I also have the generic event challenge in here. Yeah. So challenge essentially says, I know it's hard to read, right? But challenge it essentially says no dodges may be played until the end of your next turn, right? So that hurts you if you're going to try to dodge. But in this deck, like we don't care about dodging. Like we're not trying to dodge. We're trying to keep our guard up and attack back through our guard and restrict our opponent from dodging. We've got Lighthouse location that says if they play an unsuccessful attack, they can't dodge. We've got challenge, which basically says no dodges may be played until the end of your next turn. We've got our Master of the Katana, which basically says we can keep our master's guard up forever and attack back through it without dropping it. So, with those cards like coming together and, with the synergy that they bring, it's really strong, like in my opinion. And, it's kind of funny, like how it worked out when I was playing. I actually won one of my games with a broken weapon. I remember the game, and like at the very beginning of the game, I come out of the gate hot, because you can play a guard without, unprovoked. You can just put your guard up, right? So it basically be like, you have your weapon and you hold, you get into a guard stance, right? So you hold your guard or however you're gonna. So that's kind of like what it's like. So you can play a guard unprovoked, right? So that's what I did. Like I went first, and so I just dropped Master's Guard unprovoked. So it's a full grid defense. I just dropped Master's Guard. And we got another person in the chat. What's up, my fellow immortal? Thank you for joining us. If y'all have any stuff that y'all want to talk about, John Pauly says, been playing since day one, but know nothing since then on rule changes and deck constructions. This will help. John, if you have any questions, man, throw them down in the chat, bro. I would love to answer those questions for you. We got Steve in the chat. Steve can answer some of those questions for you. Steve's on holy ground though. All right, so don't forget, Steve is on holy ground. But John, if you have any questions, bro, drop them in the chat, man. I would love to try to help you answer some of those questions or, help clear up some stuff because this game can be kind of confusing. it can be kind of confusing if you've been playing since day one, and then there's been a couple different editions since first edition. But like I said, man, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and dude, I can guarantee you, I can answer those questions, or we can figure it out. But yeah, I mostly play I mostly play second edition now at this point in time. Like I've been playing I have played first edition. I played first edition quite a lot, to be honest with you. Like when I first started playing this game, I played first edition. Like that's all I played. And I didn't really I knew that there was a second edition out there, but like it was one of those things to where like I had so many first edition cards. We got NC Space Monkey. What's up, bro? How you doing? The deck seriously sounds great. The problem for people like me who weren't able to get into the game during its heyday, second edition and beyond is well out of reach. Only have first edition. Bro, I feel like, with the advent of stuff like MPC, make playing cards, and I feel like, with Shane's site especially, I feel like from a collector's side, like as you can see my collection back here, like I've got, those are all like first edition, boxes and stuff, and like I've got the DVDs and stuff like that. But like as far as like being able to get your hands on second edition stuff, with Shane's site and sites like NPC, it's important that you don't, download those cards, download the images and have, proxies made and then go sell them. I understand that you don't want to do something like that, but with something like Shane's site where he's giving you access to like, the images for the cards and the sets and stuff like that, and MPC make playing cards, I feel like you can really get into second edition. Steve says you can download the second edition and print your own. Yeah, like exactly like what I was saying. Like you can download the images from second edition, and you really at this point, like you don't have to wait on anybody to get your hands on stuff that you want. And if you're just trying to play this game, you don't really need to be worried about like not having a legitimate card, right? Like you don't need to worry about that. Like you're just trying to play the game. You're not trying to sell your collection as 100% off, it's 100% authentic and stuff like that. Like you're not trying to do any of that kind of stuff. And it's like, if you just want to play the game, don't be afraid to, get those images and make sets from NPC or another website that you can print cards on, and have those proxies, sent to your house. Like have that stuff sent to your house, because if you really, really want to play the game and you want to get into second edition and stuff like that, that's the best way to do it, because the availability of product. And I made a video talking about like my advice to new players. My advice to new players, it still holds true to this day. Like it still holds true to where like you want to be able to play first edition, because if you're the kind of player that like wants to crack open packs and booster boxes and stuff like that, then there's so much first edition product out there still that you can buy those boxes. You can find series, you can find Four Horsemen, you can find The Gathering, you can find that kind of stuff for first edition, and you can order it there. It's sealed boxes, you can crack them open, you can build decks from it. And it's like, I understand that from a collector's side. Like I am that kind of person too, where it's like, I want to be able to like crack open boxes and build decks from the stuff that like I have bought and I have opened and stuff like that. I'm that kind of person too, but when it really comes to it, like I just want to play the game. You know what I'm saying? Like I just want to play. And like if I have to make some proxies or whatever, then I'm gonna do that. Space Monkey says, yeah, you and Steve make a good point. It's just a mental barrier for me to get over personally as an avid CCG collector. Yeah. He says, I've always wanted the actual cards, but I suppose that's not possible. I mean, dude, I feel you too. Like, honestly, like I like that, like it really says something to me, because when I first started, actually trying to play, Steve says, plus you can add to your second edition. Yeah, exactly. Like you can add, to your second edition proxies, and you can play Type 1 with your first edition collection. So it's one of those things where it's like, as a collector and as a CCG player, I really for the longest time was like so against, playing with proxies. I was just like, man, I don't want to do that. I want to build decks with the cards that I have. I don't want to play with proxies. For some reason, it was a mental barrier for me. Like I couldn't get over it. Like it was just one of those things. But the more games that I played, and I started getting into second edition more, I just kind of realized I'm like, I'm never going to be able to really get into this game the way that I want to get into it. Like I'm never going to be able to have the sets and the cards that I really want unless I do this. Like I'm, and what it was like at the end of the day, I was missing out on so much fun and so much like knowledge about the game because I was so against making proxies and stuff like that. Like I was just against it. But when that like floodgate opened, I just kind of like took off, and it was just like, hey, I understand that the availability of product for second edition, like it's basically non-existent. And you can find cards on eBay and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you're buying like one card, you're not going to get a full set, you're not going to get a full set of like whatever immortal you're looking for. Like you're not going to get it. So when that kind of like floodgate opened for me, I was just like, screw it, man. Like I want to play this game. Like I really want to play, and I wanted to play like the newest edition, the most current edition. Because I was playing first edition for the longest time, right? I was playing first edition for the longest time, and like I knew that there was more out there, and like I was able to meet some good friends now, and we have a play group that we continuously play. Like we're playing all the time. We're playing all the time, and it's hard for Highlander players, man, because like it was such a niche game, and the communities that really took off on this game, they were located on different areas of the country. It wasn't like a nationwide thing. So like certain areas of the country had like a huge following for this game, but then there were certain areas like where I'm at, like there was nobody really, like there was nobody that played. So I was able to reach out to some people when I first started playing online, and luckily I found some really good guys that like were like, hey, we still play, we've been playing from the beginning, and we want to keep playing. So it's like they were willing to play, and we just basically formed this play group, and it's a way for us to continue to play this game. So I think that the excuse of like, well, there's nobody in my area that plays anymore, so I can't play. What do we got? We got Nigel. Nigel says, hi Luke, just wanted to say hi before I go to bed, wanted to support your channel. Nigel, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Space Monkey says, I certainly have enough first edition spares to use for proxies. There you go. I mean, Nigel, I appreciate that, bro. For y'all that don't know, man, Nigel is a world champion. He's an amazing player. Nigel builds some of the best decks I've ever seen. I've never beat Nigel, though. We've played many times. I've never beat him, though. So one of these days, Nigel, Steve saying good night. No, one of these days, Nigel, I'm going to take your head, bro. I'm going to take your head. I swear. One of these days, all right? I mean, I haven't got you yet, but one of these days, I swear, is coming. John says, where do you play online? So we have a play group. So I started a Discord for Highlander players, and the Discord, I can Nigel. So I can send you a link if you want, or we can figure something out. But yeah, we play online, man. We don't play like on Tabletop Simulator or anything like that. We play with like real cards. And night, Nigel. Have a good night, bro. Like I said, I'm gonna take your head one of these days, Nigel. I swear I'm gonna do it. So I got something good cooking up for you too. Space Monkey says, does anyone offer any training games online? Dude, if you want to play, bro, we can schedule a time. We can play. I can, like I said, I can answer any questions. Like it doesn't bother me to help somebody, to teach somebody that wants to play like that. I'm down for that, bro. Like if you want to play and you have questions or whatever it does, or whatever it may be, like we can link up, we can play. I can help you build a deck, whatever you want to do, man. It's really just about playing the game. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, if you want to play first edition and you don't have any second edition stuff, that's fine. I've got enough first edition cards that I can put together a deck and we can play, and we can do something like that. So if you want to, bro, just reach out to me. And like I said, man, I can help you out. We can play a game. I can help you build a deck. I can answer any questions you have. And as far as like where do we play online, like I was saying, we don't play through like Tabletop Simulator or anything like that. We use real cards. Like I've got real cards here, and almost all of my second edition collection. I appreciate that. I'll reach out to you, but yeah, man, reach out to me anytime, bro. Like anytime, we can play anytime. Like it doesn't matter. I'm always down to play. I play all the time. Like I play Highlander all the time. Like every week, I'm playing at least one game a week. Like so, it's not a problem, bro. Like, just reach out. We'll get it going, bro. I promise. We'll get it going. We'll have a good time, bro. I promise. And like I was saying, man, if you just want to play first edition, like I said, man, I've got enough cards that we can play first edition. Like, we don't need, if you don't have any second edition stuff, like we don't even need to worry about type 2 or anything like that. Like, I've got enough first edition that I can build a deck, and I won't, hey, you might be a solid player, bro. So like you might whoop me, with first edition, with what I've got out for first edition. So you might take me down. So and I would love that, man. Like I would love that. So anytime, bro, it's no problem. But like I was saying, man, we play like on Facebook Messenger, or we play through Discord. And a lot of us have been playing at this point for like many years at this point. So like, we play through like FaceTime. If you have an iPhone, we play through FaceTime and stuff like that. Like, so like I have a lot of these guys, like, phone number, contact info, because we play all the time. We play regularly. So it's like one of those things where like, I'll just shoot them a text like, yo, you want to run a game Friday? Or like, what are you doing on a Sunday or whatever? Or they'll hit me up and they'll be like, hey, I got a deck idea or whatever. So we'll do it like that, So like, Facebook is a really good place. Like the Blood of Kings Facebook page, Highlander Facebook page. That's a really good place to find people to play. Like I'm in that group too. So I'm in that group too. So yeah, man. If y'all wanna play anytime, bro, you just gotta hit me up and let me know. Like I'm always down for that. It's just one of those things where it's like, going back to what I was saying, is that you don't need to be afraid to make proxies. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't need to be afraid because you're like, oh, these aren't real cards or whatever. I get that. But the thing is like, you're not trying to collect those cards. Like, right, you're having those cards made to play. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference. Like, I would say 90% of my second edition collection, no, I'd say 95%. 95%, they're all legit, right? All of my, like nearly 95% of my second edition collection, they're all real. But the 5% that I was missing, that I wanted to get my hands on and stuff like that, like I didn't care. Like I wanted to play the game. I needed those cards to build decks and stuff like that. So it was just one of those things where it was like, I went ahead and made proxies of certain stuff that I wanted, stuff that I needed. So like I just kind of got over that. It's like I would never sell the proxies anyways. You know what I'm saying? Like I would never do that anyway. So it was just one of those things where it's like I didn't care because I just wanted to play. And I feel like if anybody out there just wants to play the game, then make the proxies. Like, Shane's site, Highlander the card game. It's all one word, man. It's super easy. HighlanderTheCardGame.com. Super easy. Just go to the site. It's got the images. Just download the images and make proxies. And when Shane comes out with a new set, buy the new set. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to come out with some more stuff. I'm fairly certain. Like, he's going to come out with some more stuff. So when he does, buy the new set when it comes out. And John says, I'll be reaching out to play some first edition till I get second edition proxies from Shane. Excellent. But I know nothing about second edition. Nah, bro, you don't got to know anything about it, man. I can teach you how to play. It's super easy. I can teach you how to build a deck. We can go over all that kind of stuff. Like, we can go over all that kind of stuff about how to build a deck, what you need to do. I can kind of go into it a little bit right now. All right, just a little bit, because it's not super complicated, but it's more than like a 10-minute discussion, but it's fairly simple, all right? So in second edition, what the design team did, like Steve and Jim and a bunch of other people that were on the design team, what they did was they gave each immortal a set number of attributes, right? Strength, toughness, agility, empathy, reason, stuff like that, right? And they put some if you look up here, I'll see if I can get that up there. So if you see the first number here, I know it's backwards, but what does Steve say? Steve says the guy who designed 1/4 of the second edition cards is agreeing and telling you to proxy the cards. There you go. Like Steve's telling you, he's like, yeah, exactly. He designed 1/4 of the second edition cards. So he's like, proxy the cards. If you want to play, don't feel bad about it. It's one of those things where it's like, just proxy the cards, bro. Like, you don't need to worry about it. Just proxy them because you just want to play the game. You're not trying to sell them online. You know, that's a whole nother ball game. Whatever. You're not trying to just. But if you want to play, just proxy the cards, bro. Dude, there are some times where like I write down on a piece of paper. Like I'll be writing down on a piece of notebook paper, like a card. I'll look it up on Watcher's database, right? And I'll look up what it does, its attribute, all this stuff, and I'll write it down on a piece of notebook paper and cut it out, and I'll stick it in a sleeve, and I'll build the deck that way. Like sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, right? But as far as like second edition and how you build a deck with it, it's super straightforward, bro. I know this is kind of hard to see, but I'll show it up there. So the 6, the 6, that's your Masters cards, right? That's how many Masters cards you can include in the deck, right? And then it goes agility, then it goes strength, toughness, I think empathy and reason, right? So each one of those attributes has a number on it, okay? So each one of those attributes has a number, right? And for like Hamza, for example, like he says he can have 6 Masters cards. So I can only include 6 Master cards in my deck for Hamza. And then it goes on to say he can have 12 agility. I know that's hard to see. I apologize, guys. I know that's hard to see. But he can have 12 agility. I know it's backwards, but he can have 12 agility. So what that means is each gem, let's see if I can find one here. I know I can. So like, for example, Lighthouse. If you look at the bottom right here, that's the gem that, or the attribute, that's the color of agility, right? So I can have 12 agility attributes in my deck. So what that means basically is I can only have 12 cards with that agility colored gem or attribute in my deck, right? And what that basically did is it really streamlined the decks, and it kind of like gave them more focus, right? So giving the immortals like attributes and stuff like that, it really honed it down, and it made it to where you can build a faster deck. You can build something that's a lot. It's a killer, right? It's a killer, and that's one of those things. So building a second edition deck, you just need to follow that process. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, if some of them don't have like the total number, some of the immortals, they'll have like, it'll say like for toughness, right, which is green or dark blue, right? It'll say like 7. And you're thinking, okay, I can only have 7 toughness. What you need to do when it comes to stuff like that is you times it by 3, right? So 7 times 3 is what, 21? So you can have 21 toughness gems in your deck, 21 cards that have that same attribute in your deck, right? So just keep that in mind when you're going through it. But you know, you don't really need to have like a super deep knowledge of, you know, deck building when it comes to, you know, building a deck for second edition. Just kind of keep that in mind when you're building your deck, and go over the gem count, the attributes that you have. Just make sure you don't go over that, and you'll fill out your deck, you know, fairly simple. Like you'll fill it out, and that's really it's really straightforward, man. Like it's really straightforward. It's not too hard to really to get into it and, like, you know, build a good deck. It's not hard. I mean, if you saw the video that I made about, you know, the basics of deck building, I know I didn't really cover much about the attribute gems, because that really is its own video, you know, that's really its own video. You know what I'm saying? Like that's really its own thing. Like it would be so, that video that I made, it would have been like an hour long. You know what I'm saying? Like he says, I do love the deck building mechanic introduced in second edition. Always wanted to try it. Yeah, man, it's really good. It's really good. It streamlines everything. You know, it makes stuff faster. It makes stuff. It makes the game, you know, better in my opinion, because it limits the kind of power creep, right? That a lot of stuff that first edition had. First edition is a great game. Like, don't get me wrong. First edition is really great, and second edition is even better in my opinion. I love first edition. I love it. Second edition, I mainly only play second edition right now. Like I'm not really playing first edition anymore. I mean, I still have the cards. I still, like, obviously I still have my collection and stuff like that. But when it comes to like actually building decks and stuff like that, now it's just going to be straight second edition. I did do something like, you know, a budget deck video for first edition. And the reason why I did that was basically because, you know, a lot of players out there kind of wanted to know what they could do with a very limited amount of cards. So that's kind of why I made that video, what you can do with a little bit in first edition. And all of the stuff in that video, all of those cards in that video, they're not like super hard to find. Space Monkey says, are there any deck building apps out there, something that can help a player like me without the physical cards to flip through? There's no deck building app out there for this game. And I'm going to say that there's not a deck building app out there because essentially this is, yeah, Steve says, unfortunately, no. I'm going to say something that like might seem bad or it might seem, whatever. I'm not saying this because like I'm being negative. Like I'm not saying this as a negative aspect of it, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm going to say is that it's essentially a dead game, right? It's dead, right? I'm using air quotes because it's not really dead. There are people that still play. There's still a big following for it. There's still people that buy cards and stuff like that. But as far as like CCGs out there, it's dead because there's no sets that are being released in stores. You can't go to your LGS and buy Highlander booster boxes or starter boxes. Like you have to find that stuff online. And 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, you're only going to find first edition, right? So it's like, it's a dead game, but it's really not because there are still sets being made, like Shane's making sets, and you can still find sets out there. But it's like, there's no deck building app because the amount of time it would take, unless you're just, a whiz and you do things like that, like this is what you do, you make apps and stuff like that, and you could do it in your spare time. There's no really app out there because nobody really wants to devote the time and the resources to making something like that for the amount of people that would actually use it. Because like I said, it's a dead game, even though it's not really, but it would cost a lot of time and resources into making that app. And it's like, unless you've got a bunch of time on your hands and, you're willing to do it, it's just kind of like a dead end thing, right? It's a dead end alley, right? A location in Highland. It's a dead end alley, bro. But the best thing to do, Space Monkey says, Highlander TCG is ultra thematic as the game itself is immortal, even though it died years ago. True. It died, but it's not dead, right? Because it didn't have its head taken off, right? Highlander still has its head. We've limped on, and we're still going to continue to do our thing. Steve says the deck building app died with Highlander Pro. True. So true. Man, I've got some opinions on Highlander Pro. They might be controversial. They might not be controversial. It's a lot of stuff with Highlander Pro. Space Monkey says, so Highlander Pro is indeed dead. Highlander Pro is indeed dead. Yes, I would say that Highlander Pro is dead in the water. Like, I would say that. Not that it was a terrible idea or anything like that. I'm not saying that it was bad or anything like that. I just feel like there was too much. I think there was a lot of complication with Highlander Pro. I think it was a decent idea. I think that they had some good ideas. They had some bad ideas. But hey, man, you're not gonna have a brilliant idea every time you think of something, right? You're gonna have bad ideas, right? He says, Space Monkey says, I was hoping that would be a great way to finally get in the game. Man, to be honest with you, like, it just comes down to licensing, bro. Like, it just comes down to licensing. And, the Highlander trademark and the images and everything like that, like, yeah, it's an older IP. But the thing is like, it's still very popular with its fan base. So it's like if you have an older IP that hasn't done anything for a long time, but it still has somewhat of a cult following, like you're going to have a hard time getting around that kind of stuff. Like you're not just going to be able to jump into it and, skirt that kind of stuff and get around it and just make whatever you want. So I think that it was a problem with licensing, man. Like, and true, Steve says it wasn't compatible with the old game. That was another issue that I had with it. Like, it just wasn't compatible. Space Monkey says I had a lot of complaints about the Pro idea, but was still hopeful for it to bring the game back. I think if they would have gone about it differently, I think that it would have had more success if they would have gone about it differently. Because when you have a game that has one edition, two editions, and for a brief time, three editions. When you have a game like that, and you've asked people, for over 20 years, you have people that have been investing money into a game for over 20 years, and you're going to tell them that you have a new edition coming out, but that new edition isn't compatible with all of the stuff that they've bought in the past, right? The new game, it's still the same game, but you're not going to be able to use all of the same or all of the cards that you bought for over 20 years. That probably turned a lot of people off, and I think what it did personally is I think it divided, the community, which when you have such a game like this and you've got like a pretty tight community and you have a small community, I feel like you can't divide really anybody. Because if you divide four people and there's what, 50, 60, 100 people, or you divide 10 or 20 of those people out of the 100 or whatever it may be, that could be detrimental to what you're trying to do. You know what I'm saying? Because like you don't really have the luxury to divide anybody. You've got to find a way, and it's pretty impossible to find a way to like make everybody happy. I understand that. There's always going to be people that aren't happy with something that you do. Like I get that, but you can't just divide, majority of your players and expect them to be okay with that and to be like, I'm going to create a new addition to the game. I'm going to streamline things, or I'm going to do whatever. But all of the stuff that you bought in the past, you can't use that anymore, right? You can't, all of the cards and the investment and the time that you spent, curating your collection, you can't use that stuff anymore. So I think that turned a lot of people off because, the veterans of the game, you need the veterans. Like you've got to have those guys on board, and because they've been there from the beginning. And I'm not saying that a lot of the veterans weren't on board. That's not what I'm saying. But you need them to bring up the new generation of the game. So it's like if those dudes aren't on board with it, and you're going to tell those guys like you can't play any of the cards that you bought before, and you can't play the collection that you spent 20 plus years collecting. If you can't do that, those guys are going to kind of feel like, why do I need to invest in something new when I spent 20 years building the collection that I have now and I can't even use it? Now I've got to pour money into something that's not even compatible with the stuff that I've already devoted, probably large sums of cash to over 20 years, right? If you do the math on the booster box prices and the starter deck prices and all the stuff that someone would have bought over the years, over the lifespan of this game, I mean, you'd kind of be a little annoyed. You'd be like, man, and it's like, what do we got? Steve says, Space Monkey says, hopefully, yeah. Steve says, Steve, true, but I thought it might allow new and old players to start off in an even ground. True. I mean, yeah. Space Monkey says, alienating those that kept the game alive for decades is a poor choice. I mean, I agree. And then Steve's saying even ground was the benefit. True, I agree. But trying to sell the majority of the base to Switch is a monumental task. Exactly. Highlander isn't Magic. It can't disqualify whole sets. True. I mean, that's like 100%. Like, it's not Magic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not Magic where you've got how many sets came out for Magic, bro? Like, how many came out? There's a lot. How many core sets of the game or whatever it may be that came out that aren't being played anymore because there's so many that came out since then, and they were just like, we're no longer playing this set or this format or whatever because we've got like 20 more. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Highlander shouldn't have done that. Like when Pro came out or when it tried to debut, it did its thing. It shouldn't have done that. Like it should have made, in my opinion, I wouldn't have even tried to create a new edition to the game. I wouldn't have done that. Like, I would not have tried to create a completely new thing. Like, I get it. You're coming into something. Like, you're coming into it, and you want to make it your own thing. I feel that. Like, I get it. But at the same time, they should have just made it compatible with the most recent edition to the game and continued on from there and built back up from like second and third edition. They could have done that, right? That's what I would have done. I would have started at second edition again. I would have continued on from second edition, and I would have released older sets that people never got a chance to get their hands on. I would have done that. That's what I would have done. First, I would have released older sets from second edition that no one was able to get their hands on. Some versus sets or some versus decks, some of the season 1, season 2, season 3 core sets. I would have released that stuff first, okay? I would have kind of done what they did with Pro, but I would have done it with second edition again, right? I would have released old versus decks like Connor versus Kurgan, which they did. I would have released, Slan. I would have released, like Immortals from the series, right? Like Immortal from the series, who was big from the series? We had Slan from the series. We had Amanda. I would have released Amanda like immediately. Like Amanda, I would have dropped Amanda immediately. Hugh Fitzcarron, I would have dropped Hugh Fitzcarron immediately. Like these are people that I would have dropped again, and I would have made new cards for them, and I would have released their old cards and their old sets, and I would have done that first, right? And I would have said, okay, all the stuff that we're releasing now is stuff that's been released in the past, but it's for people that weren't able to get their hands on it, right? Because that stuff came out a while ago. So it's like that stuff would have been released for the people that couldn't get their hands on it. And Kalis, yeah, man, dude, Kalis, of course, he would have definitely, there would have been I would have sat down, I would have written out a list of 10 Immortals from the series. Obviously, we would have had like movie Immortals, right? Like Castigear. Dude, Castigear would have been immediately released. He'd have been like in the movie block. Like I would have redone movie block. Like I would have re-released movie block. Steve says the lead designer wanted to remake the game in his image. Correct. Which that's what a lot of people do when they come into something, like brand new. It's like you get a new CEO or a new president to a company, and they come in and they want to leave their mark on the company or whatever it may be. So they change everything dramatically, right? I think sometimes that is a poor choice, right? You got to see what's working and what's not, and you don't need to just destroy everything. I'm not saying that's what he did, but I'm saying you don't need to destroy everything and rebuild it to leave your own mark. If you take something that's already there and you improve upon it, you don't destroy it, you don't make it something that's completely unrecognizable, and you improve upon it, that in a way is like how you leave your own mark. Right? That's how you leave your own mark on something, is you take something that's old and it's already pretty good and you make it better. You don't completely destroy it. You don't make it incompatible with what it's already been. You don't do things like that. Xavier, dude, of course, right? A re-release would have been far more desirable for me. I feel like a lot of people just wanted a re-release of stuff. Like they just wanted a re-release of second edition stuff that they've never been able to get their hands on. And Xavier St. Cloud, he drives me good. Bro, Xavier would have been good. Like Luther would have been good. Releasing Luther as well. He was huge. Go back and take the Immortals from the series, excuse me, that were the most popular. Xavier, Luther, Amanda, you got Rebecca. Like take those Immortals and re-release them, make some new cards for them. Kind of like what Shane did. Like with Shane's Legacy 3 set, Shane went back and he made cards for Immortals that were extremely popular, and the Immortals that were there that he made cards for, they needed those cards. So that was a brilliant idea when it came to what Shane did, and continuing on with second edition, how he did it. And essentially he what does Lennis say? What's up, Lennis? How you doing, buddy? Thank you for joining the chat, man. Thank you for joining the channel. Lennis says re-release would help both veteran players and new players. Exactly. A re-release would have helped veteran players maybe possibly get their hands on some cards that, they never were able to get their hands on. And it would help new players that probably only have first edition. You know what I'm saying? Like it would help them get into second edition, right? Because there are a lot of players out there that have a bunch of first edition cards, but they've never been able to get any second edition, right? And that's a big thing when it comes to like this game, is that people know there was first edition, there was second edition, and there was for a brief time third, right? And so like third edition was, they designed the cards, so they made them look a little bit different. It was completely compatible with second edition. There was really nothing that changed. They changed some words. I think like may do, must do phase went to like reconcile phase, right? So it was like instead of may do must do phase, in your reconcile phase instead of in your may do must do phase. They changed some stuff like that, but other than that, those two editions were completely compatible. There was nothing that changed. There were no game mechanics that changed. From second edition to third, there was nothing that changed. But speaking as far as like Highlander Pro, I think they had a good idea. I just think their execution was wrong. I don't think that they did it. I don't think that they did ultimately what people really wanted. And at the end of the day, when you're going to create a product, you have to give the public what they want, not necessarily what you want, right? You don't need to if I like strawberry cola, right? I like strawberry Coke. I love strawberry Coke, but 99% of people out there hate strawberry Coke. Why would I try to sell them strawberry Coke and expect to make money from it or expect my product to be successful? I wouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would not do that. I would go with what they wanted. Even if I hated what they wanted, you still have to give, your player base or your fan base or whatever it may be, you still have to give those people what they want. It's not what you want, it's what they want, right? That's one of those things. Castigear is awesome. Heck yeah, Castigear is awesome. I love Castigear. A little boom boom, right? Castigear holding up that flask in the movie. He's like, well, I can't remember what he said. What did he say? He said something like, what did he say? Put hairs on your chest or something like that. And kind of, I just love that part. Castigear, little boom boom, right? I love that part. Linus says, I really like what Shane's been doing to keep the game alive, especially the bonus cards with the versus sets for sure. That made some harder to get cards available for newer players like myself. Exactly. Shane went about it the right way. Like, Shane went about it, in my opinion, like exactly what I've been saying. Like, Shane went about it exactly like what it is. Steve says a big strong man like you should not. That's right. Yep. He's like, what's that? He's like, boom boom. And he's like, big strong man like you shouldn't be afraid of a little boom boom. Yes, that's right. I remember that now. I love that. They're standing on the bridge. I've always wanted to go to that bridge, man. Like where they filmed that scene. I've always wanted to go to that bridge in New York City. Where they found. I want, and you know what? If I ever do go to that bridge, I'm gonna have a flask with me, and I'm gonna drink a little boom boom on the on the bridge, man. I'm gonna do it because like that's awesome, bro. I love that. Like, yeah, Steve, thank you for that, bro. A big strong man like you shouldn't be afraid of a little boom boom, man. Yo, if they don't bring Castigear back in the new movie, I'm gonna be a little disappointed. Like, if they don't bring Castigear back in the new movie, I'm going to be a little disappointed because, I understand they had the series after they had the movie. I get that, right? Like, I understand. When I think about like the series and the movies, I think that they're like, I kind of like separate them in my mind, like two different things, right? Because the movies, like, that was The Gathering, right? Space Monkey says, the first thing I did when I got to Paris was find where Duncan's barge was docked in the series, dude. I would do the same thing, bro. I would go there and I'd be like, take a picture. And they're like, why? This is just a riverbank. I'm like, no, bro, you don't understand. This is where Duncan's barge was. And they're like, who's Duncan? I'm like, fair enough, bro. Fair enough. But yeah, if they don't bring Castigear back in the movie, if they don't bring, like, I want them to do a good reboot, right? I want them to do a good thing for it, but it's like, I want them to stay true to the actual story. Like, I don't want a bunch of new characters coming in and just, who is this dude, right? He's not in the first movie. Like, Steve says, you could always watch Star Wars Episode 1 for your Castigear fix. True, I could, yeah. And then, yeah, that was the exact conversation I had with my wife. I mean, at the same time, it's like, I don't want them to just introduce new characters in the movie. Like, and that may be like an unpopular opinion, but I don't want that. When I see the reboot and they make it, I want to see the old characters. Like, if they don't have Ramirez in the movie, like, I'm gonna riot. Like, there's gonna be some problems. Like, if Ramirez is not in the movie, I'm gonna get up and I'm going to walk out. Like, I'm going to go get my money back and I'm going to walk out. Like, Ramirez has to be in the movie. And I understand that you can't replace Sean Connery. Like, you're not going to be able to find, like, when Sean Connery played Ramirez, he killed it, right? Like Sean Connery killed Ramirez. That was epic. I mean, the way he portrayed the character, the way he just everything about it, the way he did it, it was. I mean, there couldn't have been somebody better that they chose, right? And it's like, McLeod, you must leave her, brother. You got that. He's just, and like when he jumps over him and he's on his horse and they're making out, him and Connor, his chicks, they're making out, right? And then he jumps over and he's like, hello! And he comes in there, right? And he like holds his hands up. And, it's just one of those things where it's like that, you can't redo that. But you've got to have those characters in the movie, right? You've got to have Ramirez. Obviously, they're going to have Kurgan. Like, we know they're going to have Kurgan. The Kurgan he's the main bad guy. He's going to be in the movie, right? They've got to have people like Castigier, though, right? They've got to have him. And another thing that I was thinking of that, I don't think a lot of people have thought about this. And, I've watched a bunch of stuff about, Space Monkey says, did you see the Highlander board game from a few years back? Interesting choice on the Ramirez image. I did see that, bro. I did say, and Heather's boob pops out. Bro. And Heather's boob pops out. Yeah. They got to have that in the movie. If they don't have Heather's boob popping out, I'm going to leave. Like, I'm going to leave right then and there. If Heather's boob doesn't go, boop, I'm going to leave. I'm going to tell my fiance, I'm going to be like, we have to leave right now. And she's going to be like, why? And I'm going to be like, because this is the scene in the old movie where Heather's boob popped out. And if they don't have that, Steve, come on, bro. But seriously, though, I mean, they got to stay true to the original, right? But what I was going to say is, like, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this kind of thing. And I've watched a bunch of videos on the new movie coming out, like everybody's take on it and stuff like that. Who's going to be in the movie? What characters are they going to have? And, like, if you're joining chat right now and you're in this chat, we got 7 of us, right? 8, myself included, but we got 7 of us. If you're one of the people that's in this chat and you're watching this right now, that means you're either A, a fan of the Highlander card game, or B, you're a fan of the Highlander movies and television series, or C, you're a fan of all of the above, right? So you've probably heard all the same stuff that I've heard. You've heard, like, the different rumors about the different actors and characters and who are they going to introduce. But the one thing I haven't heard is as a character that's going to appear in the movie is Young Dol Kim, right? Young Dol Kim was an immortal that made it to the Gathering in the original movie. And I know that they cut his scenes out from the movie. I understand that. But if they're going to add a new character to, like, the movie, the franchise, or whatever, it's got to be Young Dol Kim. Because he was somebody that was in the original movie. His scenes were cut. I get it. But he is a new character that they could introduce that was always supposed to be there, right? And that gives those guys, the writing team, it gives them so much to work with. Because you've got a character that was in the original movie. He's an immortal from the original, lineup of the last immortals that were there. But his character really wasn't, like, expounded upon. Like, no one really, like, you don't know his story. Like, there is a little biography, about Young Dol Kim and stuff like that. But as far as, like, character arc and stuff like that, you don't really know anything about Young Dol Kim. So it's like one of those things where it's like, if they want to introduce a new character to the movie, there you go. You don't need to make up some, crazy new character and introduce them into the universe when you have an immortal that was always supposed to be there from the very beginning, right? Like, he was always supposed to be in the movie. He made it to the Gathering, right? That's what the first movie was about. As all of you probably know, there wasn't ever supposed to be a second movie. There wasn't ever supposed to be a television series, right? It was supposed to be that one-time thing, that one movie. The immortals that made it to the end, they're the ones that were fighting for the prize, right? So it's like, as far as immortals go, they don't need to introduce anybody that's like some random character. They have someone that was already there. He already made it to the Gathering. He made it to the very end. And yeah, he lost to the Kurgan. You know what I'm saying? Like, he died from the Kurgan. But dude, the Kurgan killed everybody, right? The Kurgan killed everybody until Connor cut his head off. So it's one of those things where it's like, you don't need to introduce a new character where nobody knows who he is. And I think that would also like, give the older fans, like the people who know about the Highlander universe, like the diehard people, the people who are going to buy their tickets first to go see this movie, right? The very first people that are like, dude, I'm going to see this movie. They're the people who were pumped about the first one. They're the people who saw the first one and loved it and watched every other movie, no matter how bad they were after that, right? What do we got? We got Space Monkey says, I've always been fascinated by Young Do Kim. Me too, bro. He says, the fact there's this missing immortal from the Gathering is so intriguing. I know, dude. It's one of those things where it's like, he was there. He obviously made it all of those years fighting off other immortals, taking their heads, staying alive until then. And he made it to the Gathering. Yeah, he died by the Kurgan. But I mean, like I said, everyone dies. Everyone died to the Kurgan. The only person left that was strong enough to defeat him was Connor, right? And even Ramirez, the Kurgan killed Ramirez, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like they have this immortal where they could really elaborate on his story, and he's supposed to be there. And what I was going to say is that the people that are going to buy their tickets right away, those are the people that would already know about Young Do Kim, right? So it's like they already know that there's this immortal that was supposed to be in the first one. He was in the first one, but his scenes were cut and the Kurgan killed him and all this other stuff. But that would be something when they go see him and then his character is expounded upon, and they've elaborated on who he is, where he's from. He has his own story, his own character arc. That would be even better. You know what I'm saying? For the people that already know who he is, and for the people that don't know who he is, it would be something like, it would be even better for them too, because they would be like, dude, who is this guy? Like, they might be familiar with the movie or whatever. They might have seen the first one like a long time ago, but they're like, yo, I don't remember this guy from the first one or whatever. And then that would give them something new to talk about the movie. So it's like, I really don't want them to introduce like a brand new immortal that no one's ever heard of or something like that, just to like, just to crowbar somebody in there, right? Just to crowbar someone in there to check a box or something like that. I don't want that to happen because Highlander doesn't need anything like that. The Highlander universe is already amazing to begin with, right? So it doesn't need anything like that. Space Monkey says, I'd still prefer like a 10 episode miniseries, true, instead of just a reboot, simply for the time to really explore each of the characters before the Gathering. True, that would be dope. That would be dope. A miniseries like where they, I think, yeah, that'd be cool. Young Do Kim and Ramirez gave up on the Kurgan because they were tired of living. I mean, I can see that. And Space Monkey says, one of the truly magical elements of Highlander is showing what a curse immortality can be. True. He says, you really feel like all of the characters in the first movie are just truly exhausted from their centuries of life. I mean, I agree. I agree. You've been alive for 300 years, 350 years. Dude, even 175 years. Imagine, right? It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we've all imagined, because we're fans of Highlander, like, man, what it would be like to be an immortal, right? You never die. You don't get sick. You can't die from any disease. You don't get sick. You never have to go to the hospital. All you got to do is protect yourself and keep your head. And you could essentially live forever. We've all thought about that. But it's one of those things where it's like, dude, even after 120 years, where it's just like, you're still, imagine you right now as you sit, but 120 years from now. I mean, yeah, you're immortal, but man, life is already hard and tiring and grueling. So it's like, imagine how you would feel after just 120 years of that. Plus, you've got other immortals that may have zero empathy. They may just be sick, sadistic, twisted people, and they could just kill your loved ones or kill you or try to kill you any chance you get. So it's like that constant battle of dealing with the everyday stress of life, dealing with the other immortals that are trying to kill you, dealing with all of the people that you care about that aren't immortal. They're going to die. You got to watch them die. There's nothing you can do about it. So I kind of feel like, that's definitely a big thing. It's like, you could get exhausted, bro. Like you could get exhausted from it. Like you could just be like, I don't care anymore. Like I don't care. I don't want to live anymore. Like I've lived for 300 years. I don't want to do it anymore. Because it's like you wake up the next day, it's not going to change. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to change. You're not going to wake up the next day and all of a sudden feel rejuvenated after 300 years of other immortals trying to cut your head off. It's just one of those things where it's like, and that's but that's what it comes down to. It's like only the strong survive, and it kind of teaches you that even though they can, a person that you think could be like the strongest person you've ever met, they could get tired, they can get fatigued, they can get exhausted from something. You know what I'm saying? And they can just give up. Somebody that you think would never give up, somebody you think that would never lose, after a certain point of time they just don't care anymore. And I feel like when it comes down to it, I hate, it's not that I you know like Duncan above all of the other immortals. There are some immortals that I like more than Duncan. Duncan's not necessarily like my favorite immortal, right? He's not really my favorite immortal. I don't think that I'm not saying he's not special or whatever, but it's like I don't think that Duncan he's not my favorite. But I'm going to say something about him in a second. Space Monkey says, one of the truly magical elements of Highlander is showing what occurs. Yeah, of course. And then he says, you really feel like all the characters in the first movie are just truly exhausted. True. KD says, what's up, KD? Thanks for joining the chat, bro. KD says, they covered that in the Courage episode of the series. One of the best. True. 100%. Definitely. History Dude says, what's up, History Dude? Thank you for joining the chat, bro. History says, the reboot will take place in the 80s, but build up to the gathering in the current modern era. That'll be dope. So there will likely be new or different characters as antagonists for the first two movies. Hopefully there's a second one. And Steve says, yeah, Steve, true. Connor gave up in Endgame. He did give up. Connor did give up. That was something that bothered me about Endgame. I love Endgame, bro. Like Endgame, in my opinion, is besides the first movie, Endgame is, my opinion, maybe unpopular, whatever. It goes the original, then it goes the series, and the series stands on its own. But as far as movies go, it goes original and then it goes Endgame, because I feel like Endgame was such a more polished movie than all of the other ones. And it's one of those things where it's like I hated that where they made Connor just kind of give up on it. And I mean I see where they're going with that from like a writing standpoint. You're kind of trying to push Duncan as the new hero, and I feel that. Christopher Lambert, he was getting he was much older than he was in the original, and I understand that. They kind of wanted to move on with a different arc, and Adrian Pierce, he was a lot younger at the time than Christopher Lambert, so I see why they're doing that. But what I was gonna say about Duncan, bro, is like he's not my favorite, but he does have that aspect to where it's like, no matter what happens to him, he's not just going to give up. Like, I respect that about Duncan. Like, he's not just going to give up. He's been alive for like almost 400 years, 400, whatever it may be, but he's not just going to give up, right? He's not just going to like quit. And that's something I've always admired about Duncan's character, is that whatever happens to the guy, he always has the game in his mind, right? Duncan's always thinking about training the other immortals, being ready for him and stuff like that. Like he's always about that kind of stuff. And I respect that for him. He's not my favorite immortal, but I mean, he's up there for sure. But I respect him for the fact that he is always ready. He's never going to quit. You're never just going to bowl him over and take his head. He's never just going to, like what Connor did, he's never just going to give up. He's going to fight till the bitter end, no matter how he feels, no matter what he does. So I respected him. I've respected him about that. Space Monkey says, oh, hold on. Let's see what we got here. Connor gave up. That's true. Connor gave up an Endgame. Would have loved to see more of Jin K. Me too, bro. Jin K, bro. Donnie Yen. That'd have been dope. Space Monkey saying, yeah, I think Endgame, the only decent film after the original. True. It has a massive flaws, but it's extremely watchable. I know, bro. I watch Endgame all the time. Like, I watch Endgame all the time. I watch the original, and I watch Endgame the most, right? Space Monkey is asking, has there been any news at all about the series Blu-ray that was announced ages ago. I don't know, dude. I don't know about that. As far as like the DVDs or whatever, I don't know about Blu-ray, but I mean, I have the DVD collection, you know, from season 1 all the way to the final season. So I don't know anything about the Blu-ray set or whatever that was released. I heard something about it, but you know, I haven't heard anything since then. So KD says, I heard the company working on the set wanted to hold off until closer to the reboot. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And Steve saying Duncan had a good work-life balance. True. Whenever the game would get too much, Duncan would go off to Holy Ground for a while to recharge. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, that's important, bro. To go off to Holy Ground, you're like, look, I've had enough for a little while. I need to recharge. Like, I need to reset. I'm tired of people trying to take me out. You know, and I feel like okay, so if you see this book right here, that book, that's, you know, there was a couple of different authors that released books in the Highlander universe. Uh-oh, did we freeze? Hold up, did we freeze here? What's going on? I think we're frozen. Hold on, guys. Let me see if I can figure this out. Let me see. Hold up. Just stay with me, okay? Let me see if I can figure. I think live stream kind of messed up a little bit. Yep, it's froze. Give me 1 second. 1 second here. Let me see if I can figure it out. Hold on. Doing my best. Hold up. Let's see. No. All right. I know it's froze. Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to figure it out, guys. This is my first time doing stuff like this. So give me 1 second. Hold on. Trying to figure it out. I'm going to kill it real quick. I'm going to start it again. Hold up. Later, I'll be reaching out to you. All right, bro. I appreciate that, man. Hold up. I'm going to try to see if I can hold up real quick.